Welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Alexander Wilson, my co-host, Anthony Rivardo. Today we're doing something a little bit different and something we're going to be doing weekly from here on out, a fan mailbag specific episode. So we're going to be answering your questions via Twitter and YouTube, and hopefully, getting a lot of information out there to you guys so we can keep you guys covered and make sure everything is good to go for the following weeks. And hopefully we'll do some giveaways and do some cool creative things with this new addition to the podcast on Fireside Giants. And I just want to say thank you to everyone that's been supporting us, and we're back in action. I had a little Wi-Fi issue that was down for a couple of days, and my computer broke, so kind of everything, when it rains, it pours type of situation. But to get started, Anthony, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. I've been breaking down the film, and I'm excited to talk more Giants and have that film breakdown out by tomorrow. So excited.
Awesome. Yeah. There's a lot to go through, man. That film says a lot of good on defense and a lot of bad on offense. So I'm sure we're going to get a lot of that, especially on the final drive, which Anthony is breaking down, and kind of what Daniel Jones was seeing. What did he do right and what did he do wrong, especially on that last interception, which we're going to probably touch on a little bit during this segment. Anthony will answer the first few questions, and I will answer the remainder of them. But to jump right into things, we have Mike Pray ZR116 on Twitter. He asks, is the advantage during the Cowboys week really on Patrick because they have a new center? So is essentially what he's asking is the advantage during the Cowboys week this week really on Patrick Graham because they have a new center, and they also should have more linemen and backers around pre-snap to confuse the new center? So this is actually a very specific question. He's asking, how will Patrick Graham essentially operate his defense to confuse the new center for the Cowboys, and how can they take advantage of that? Really interesting question. And I think that Patrick Graham has done a phenomenal job using his players to their strengths. We talked about this on the podcast just yesterday. You can check it out on YouTube and iTunes. What he's done with Blake Martinez, and I think that's how they're going to really start to confuse young centers, young offensive linemen that don't really understand the NFL game that well just yet. I think they're going to do a lot of creative things. I guarantee you they're going to be focusing on guys like the new player for the Cowboys in center and trying to find ways to exploit that weakness. Anthony, how do you think they will utilize, probably with their linebackers, maybe interior defenders?
Well, I think that we should expect to see a big game from one of the three big interior defensive linemen that we have, either Leonard Williams, Dalvin Tomlinson, or Dexter Lawrence, or maybe all three. I think all three of them have played great so far this season. We've seen Leonard Williams put together a few sacks. Dalvin Tomlinson's been great in the run. And Dexter Lawrence has really been great all around. He has looked like a true stud. So I think we're going to see a big game from those guys. And then, of course, I think Mike hit it like right on the head. He hit the nail on the head with the hammer. I think with the way that Patrick Graham uses his linebackers as defensive backs, moves them all around, has blitzes coming from all over the place, that's definitely the way you want to attack a brand new center, because what they're trying to do, the center, is trying to make pre-snap calls in terms of pass protection and in terms of which way to slide and in terms of who's the blitzer. And disguising those blitzes should be relatively easy for a brand new center, a brand new young center who has not started at the position before. So I do think that Patrick Graham, we should expect to see a lot of disguised blitzes from him this week. We've seen those quite a bit every week, but I think maybe even more so this week, especially knowing just how high-powered that Cowboys offense has been the past few weeks. I definitely think that disguising the defense and blitzing all over the place is probably the way to go in this game.
I 100% agree. I think, so just to give you some insight, Joe Looney is the guy that he was the center. He has a injured MCL. He'll be out a couple weeks. So the Giants are up against Tyler Biadasz. I don't know exactly how to say his last name. Fourth round pick. Tyler Badass.
Biadasz. I don't actually, I forgot how to say his name, but he was the Giants fans were a big fan of him during the draft process. Yep. I remember that. I think
so he actually filled in quite
round.
well last week when Looney went down, which is, good for him, bad for the Giants. Now, what I expect to see is guys like Dexter Lawrence, guys like Leonard Williams, lined up over the zero, and then hopefully, guys like Blake Martinez shooting the A gap. And we're going to see a lot of that. They're going to try and confuse that interior, like right over the nose tackle, position on the center, because if they can overwhelm him, they're going to have to force them and the guards around him to make decisions. So we want to confuse them as much as possible, really open up that offensive line, give our outside linebackers a chance to rush on the edge and, take advantage of those 1v1 matchups, because the guards are going to have to help on the interior so much. We saw it against Nick Gates in the first couple of weeks. He had no idea what was going on, and teams were just running them right up the middle. And, it worked well for them, and hopefully we can replicate that same success. If we can get to Dak Prescott, we can shake him, we can create some turnovers. That's how we have to take advantage of this offensive line that is usually pretty good. They've been okay this year at best. Now, moving on to the next question, we have Shawn Michaels. Does it make sense that normally in preseason the defense looks a lot better than the offense? And seeing as we had no preseason, we shouldn't be surprised by our offensive struggles. I actually really like this question because the preseason is a really good time for, especially with new coordinators coming in to set the base offense and defense. Really just get the fundamentals out of the way. They weren't able to do that in a live game setting. They did it in intra-squad matches, but they couldn't really get as much done as they'd like to because they were facing each other. They knew what was coming already. When you're facing other teams, you have to be creative. You have to anticipate totally different set of mental skills. Now, I think that what we saw from the Giants, especially with a lot of new rookies on the team on both sides of the ball and new coaching staffs, we saw that they struggled because they were trying to get the base defense down. They were essentially playing their preseason games during the regular season, which was not ideal for them. Now, do you see that the same way? Do you think that the defense is supposed to look a lot better than the offense, or vice versa?
What I'll say is I did expect to see offensive struggles, but I didn't expect to see the offense go 10 quarters without scoring a touchdown. They shouldn't struggle that much. Yeah, they should struggle. Maybe, the points per game average would be somewhere between 15 and 20, not underneath 12. Like, that's alarming that it's as low as it is, that they're just not getting touchdowns. They're not getting in the red zone. Then they have 2 games, I think, already where they didn't have a single snap in the red zone. That is atrocious. I don't know how that happens. It can't happen anymore. So, yeah, I expected struggles on offense, but not this bad. And the defense, I honestly expected struggles there as well, and we haven't seen them. So you could say that's a testament to how well Patrick Graham has coached that side of the ball. You could just say we're looking at it relative to the offense, and they've been so bad that it makes the defense look even better than they are. But I think the defense has looked great. I know the San Francisco game wasn't so great, but I think that was also a product of the offense, not being able to stay on the field. The defense got gassed, and it wore them out towards the end. But overall, I do kind of agree that those first 4 weeks of the season are kind of like a preseason, but at the end of the day, they're not. You see other teams around the league that are fine, and they are thriving on offense. I mean, look at the Chargers with brand new rookie quarterback Justin Herbert. They're fine. He's been playing great. They're putting up points. So at some point, you got to stop making excuses, and you got to put some points on the board. As much as I want to say no preseason really hurt this team, it's like it doesn't matter. You got to start producing, and week 5 is the time to do it against the Cowboys, and they're really bad defense.
I 100% agree. I think that what we're actually seeing right now across the league is an excessive amount of scoring. So it's actually kind of worrisome. We're really just looking at it at a biased perspective. When we ask these questions like, the defense should be better. That hasn't been the case around the league. So, I think that's really just a Giants-specific problem. They're averaging 11.8 points per game. And Jason Garrett just said today, we're still trying to find out, who our strengths are on offense. And I'm like, okay, let me list them for you. No pre-snap motions. You're not getting a player like Golden Tate, who's been the best in the league for years now at yards after catch in space. I want to see more wide receiver screens for him. I want to see Darius Slayton running downfield. They're using too many short crossing routes for him. Like we saw in that 30-yard pass against the Steelers, against the Rams last week, across the field, gets nailed by Daniel Jones, 30-yard pickup. I want to see more stuff like that. Deep crossing routes, streaks. He's really fast. He can beat guys downfield. And, you got to take shots. You got to stretch the field. Essentially, if you don't do that, you're only hurting yourself. And Jason Garrett's just like talking himself into a storm of trouble because he says things like that. And you're like, well, we can list off how to change that right now. And like, it just is kind of problematic. It kind of, tough for me to sit here and listen to him speak like that when we're like, we know what you're doing wrong. And I know a lot of it falls on the offensive line, but they haven't done the offensive line any favors either and given them much momentum. Last week, they didn't look that bad. They had 138 yards on the ground. Like, the offense was capable of doing better than
couldn't get in the end zone.
And a lot of that, they just couldn't get in the end zone. A lot of that falls on the wide receivers. And like we said in the podcast, that Daniel Jones is not moving on from his first read. He's getting stuck on the first read. And that is a product of, I think, the offensive scheme, and I think how Jason Garrett wants him to run the offense fundamentally. Last year we saw him get creative. We saw him go off script against the 49ers on that back shoulder throw to Darius Slayton, And now we're sitting here like, why does he look like he's a robot trying to go through his reads and he's getting stuck? He's double clutching. These are not things we saw last year with Daniel Jones. So, it is what it is. We'll hopefully see some progress against Dallas in week 2. And I want to move on to the next question now from Andrew Allen. If the Giants don't have the first pick in the draft, can you see them pick a quarterback? If not, or why? Why wouldn't they pick a quarterback? Well, back to the Trevor Lawrence debate, I guess. If they don't have the first pick, they're not getting Trevor Lawrence. That's the final conclusion that I have. So it really leaves Trey Lance and Justin Fields. I think Trey Lance is going later in the first round anyway, but Justin Fields is that next guy up. I don't think I'm taking Justin Fields and replacing him with Daniel Jones personally. I would rather have Trevor Lawrence any day of the week. If they're not in the position to get a number 1 pick, I think they go with Parsons from Penn State or Penei Sewell. That's how you say his last name.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting because if they have the number 1 pick, no matter who gets the number 1 pick, they're going Trevor Lawrence, right? But the number 2 pick, I've actually seen a lot of buzz start to generate around Trey Lance, and a lot of people are saying Trey Lance should be QB2 and he should go in the top 3 picks. And so then I think at this point, it's probably just too soon to say because you've got the rest of the college season to see how these players develop. And then you've got the scouting combine and all of this pre-draft stuff that we have to look at before we can really make that kind of a decision. But I'm not going to take that off of the table. It's definitely possible that the Giants could look at quarterback inside of the top 5. I think once you get outside the top 5, there's no chance. But if the Giants are in the top 5, I definitely think every position is on the table, whether that be offensive tackle, whether that be quarterback, cornerback, linebacker, edge rusher, whatever it is. I think all of it is on the table. Even wide receiver, I think would even be on the table in that scenario. But I do think that most likely the only way they take a quarterback is if they get the number 1 pick. Because I do think Daniel Jones still, while he's struggling, he is showing some flashes here and there. He has regressed a little bit, which is concerning. But we have these next 12 weeks to see if he can get back up to the speed that he was at last season and then take all the things that he's actually improved on this year, because he has improved on a few things, and then combine it with what he was doing last year. So maybe by the end of the year, Daniel Jones can turn this around and start to look really good and then take this quarterback debate out of here. But still, like I said, number 1 pick, it's Trevor Lawrence, no doubt. I just think it's too soon to say on the guys like Trey Lance and Justin Fields.
Yeah, I would agree. I really just want the Giants to stay away from the quarterbacks if they can, unless Trevor Lawrence is on the board. Obviously, that's a whole different scenario. I think we have a new GM next year anyway, so they might go with their own guy. But if they can't get him, Micah Parsons is a generational linebacker. He's a guy that changes the defense. He's a guy that comes in and immediately makes that unit. With pairing him with Blake Martinez, that is a unit that suddenly becomes one of the best in the NFL immediately. And I really think that if they don't go that route, they go with Penei from Oregon. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about a guy who is one of the best offensive linemen in the draft, generational talent as well. Like we're talking Quentin Nelson type of talent. He comes in, you put him wherever the hell you want. I think Kevin Zeitler's still on his contract. You put him at left guard if you want to. And you're talking about...
I think you take Sewell and you put him at left tackle, and then you move Andrew Thomas.
Oh, you put him at left tackle?
That's probably what I would do.
Okay, well, let's say they do that then. They put Sewell at left tackle. Now you have Andrew Thomas at right tackle, Kevin Zeitler, Nick Gates, and Will Hernandez. Theoretically, on paper, that looks like an awesome line. That looks like a line that we haven't had in 10 years.
Once we get rid of Hernandez, yeah.
Once we get rid of Hernandez, but we have Shane Lemieux, and I like Shane Lemieux.
I like
He's a baller.
Lemieux. I think Lemieux. I know we always talk about
they have actual chemistry.
Parrott. We talk about Matt Parrott stealing reps from Cam Fleming. I think we're going to have to pretty soon start talking about Shane Lemieux stealing reps from Will Hernandez if Will Hernandez keeps playing at the level that he's playing at.
I agree, and Will Hernandez. Or rather, Shane Lemieux and Sewell, they're both from Oregon. They have the chemistry already.
Yep.
So that would be pretty interesting to see. That's something that I don't want to spend 2 consecutive draft picks, especially like Jamar Chase and some of these really, really talented players there. I don't want to spend 2 consecutive draft picks. We have Nate Solder coming back as well on offensive linemen, but that we're talking about on paper. Obviously, you can't guarantee anything. On paper, that unit is there's no excuses anymore. There's no excuses for Daniel Jones not to play well. No excuses for wide receivers not to get open. You can get good wide receivers in the 2nd, 3rd round of the draft. You can go out and sign Allen Robinson if you wanted to. There's a lot of stuff you could do. We still have Sterling Shepard. We still have Darius Slayton. There's a lot of movement. Now that's kind of how to wrap up that one. But this is the last one for Anthony, and I'll keep answering a couple more. Okay, Gettleman makes it past the bye week? Question mark, or until the end of the season? This is by the Revenant on Twitter. So Anthony, do you think that Gettleman lasts until the end of the year? Or do you think he gets the axe if they keep losing?
I think he makes it to at least week 13, 14, somewhere around there. I don't think that he gets the axe mid-season. The bye, that's week 11, right? So week 11, 12, I guess it's possible by then, if we're 0-12, if we're 0-11, whatever, 0-10. If we haven't won a game by then, yeah, he probably gets the axe at the bye week. That sounds fair, like ultimately fair. You can't really debate that. But realistically, the Giants are known to keep these guys around as long as they possibly can before firing them. And I think that's probably what they would do here. They would probably wait until the season's over and then say Gettleman's retiring or something, and then he'll part ways, and then, the Giants will move on. So that's probably what I would see. But like I said, if we haven't won a game by then, there's no reason to keep Gettleman around. He should receive consequences for his actions, which would be building a team that goes 0-10 or 0-11.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look, Gettleman is on the hot seat, in my opinion. We're 3 years in. The offensive line is still built. He's still not built. He's still trying to get that done. The wide receivers are a mess. Saquon Barkley is injured again. There's a lot of decisions that he made that you can sit here and say, I don't really trust him anymore. And I don't think that he is the guy to keep going with the job, because his mentality is so old school, and we need someone younger. We need someone that understands the modern aspects of the NFL right now. High octane passing offenses with pre-snap motions. He's bringing in guys that fit an old school mold. And Saquon Barkley actually is a modern day running back that is trying to be forced into an old school power blocking scheme.
Yep.
That is exactly the problem that I'm talking about right now, is that he should be used like Alvin Kamara. He should be used as a glorified scat back, 13 receptions per game. Use him in arrow routes, Texas streaks up from the slot. Use him in creative ways. Get him out into the wide receiver spot. And we just haven't seen it. We haven't seen it when he's on the field, and now he's injured again. So what do you do from here? And look, they could easily put Devonta Freeman in that role. He's a good pass catching back. He's also another guy that's kind of like a glorified scat back. But we're seeing the scheme just not there for that type of mold that the running back should be utilized right now with the Giants and across the NFL. We're seeing it with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Alvin Kamara, even Tariq Cohen in Chicago before he went down. Like, these guys are being used in very specific ways. When you have generational talents like Saquon, you have to use them to their strengths, and it's just not happening. And I think Dave Gettleman's a big piece in really holding things back. But I also think ownership, maybe not Steve Tisch, but John Mara specifically, wants to hold on to this like ground and pound, earth, wind, and fire, Brandon Jacobs and Matt Bradshaw mentality. And like, I just don't want to see it anymore. I want to see the offense do some high octane stuff, really get the ball downfield, get people in space, mismatch their opponents and their assignments. We're just not seeing it. So I think personally, Gettleman, they'll keep him just so he can retire admirably at the end of the year. I don't think they'll fire him mid-season. Just not the Giants' way, in my opinion. But I think it will happen this year.
Yeah, I definitely think Gettleman's gone by the end of the year. I just, like you said, I don't think it's a Giants' way for them to fire him mid-season, unless we're winless 10 weeks into the season. We go 10 weeks without winning, then yeah, you know what, they'll fire him. But I agree. I think that he's probably safe until the end of the year.
Agreed. Well, Anthony, I appreciate you coming on today to help me answer some of these mailbag questions. I will continue on forward without the Ant-Man. On to our next question from Twitter. We have Eddie. Maybe this will be the year the Giants dominate their division and can't beat anyone else. Thoughts? Well, the division right now is a complete mess. We've seen the NFC East. The Washington football team is terrible. The Dallas Cowboys are terrible, at least on defense. And the Eagles are also a mess. People are already giving up on Carson Wentz, and justifiably so. So the Giants have an opportunity to climb back into this race pretty easily. The problem is they don't have the offense to do it. Currently, everyone's kind of tied in first place right now, with the Eagles kind of leading with 1 win, 2 losses, and 1 tie. So they have a .375 winning percentage. We have 0, obviously. All we have to do is win 2 games, and suddenly this kind of turns around pretty quickly. And the Eagles are playing the Steelers this week, then the Ravens, then the Giants, then the Cowboys, and then the Giants again. So they have a really tough schedule. The Cowboys, on the other hand, are sitting here in third place currently, and they have the Giants this week, then the Cardinals, a good team, Washington, Eagles, Steelers, Vikings, Washington, Ravens. So they also are kind of in a tough spot. And we all know how difficult the Giants' schedule is currently, with the Cowboys, Washington, Eagles, Bucks again. So, they have Tom Brady, totally different team from last year. Then Washington, Eagles, Bengals. It's actually not the hardest schedule. We have a lot of NFC East matchups coming up in the next couple of weeks, which are going to be essential. If we can win out in the NFC East, we will probably end up with the first seed in the division. So while it's kind of embarrassing to think that, they are this bad, this division is so bad that they have a compiled, 3 wins, the Giants aren't that far out of it. So, we'll see what happens, but personally, I don't think that they are going to win the division. I don't think they have the offense to do it. And unless suddenly everything clicks, which I can't imagine happening. I know we already talked about Jason Garrett and how problematic his scheme has been with the lack of pre-snap motion, everything in between. But I just don't think that this unit is capable of putting up 30, 35 points per game. And even if they got to the postseason, they'd be completely relying on their defense. And we all know the time of possession on pretty much every game has been negative for the offense, which really hurts the defense. The fact they actually rank 13th currently in scoring allowed and points allowed, and 5th in yards per game allowed, is astounding. It's unbelievable. What Patrick Graham has done for that defense has been nothing short of amazing. I give him all the credit in the world. On to the next question by Bear Jerry. Is this offense finally going to get it going this week? And do you think Garrett is on the hot seat if this continues? This is a good question, because bringing up Garrett is something that needs to be done at this point. We all know that Jason Garrett comes from the Dallas Cowboys. He's been there for like a decade now. How do you actually deal with Garrett if he continues to struggle? That's a whole nother thing that is really going to rely on, can he get this offense moving? Can things actually pick up and they start to score some points? They average 11.8 points per game right now, which is measly. It's embarrassing. How do you actually get away with that? I don't know. That's where we're headed. How do you actually get away with being the worst scoring team in the NFL without getting fired? I don't think Jason Garrett was a Joe Judge hire, by the way. Garrett is from the Giants coaching tree way back in the day. He has a relationship with John Mara. I think they brought him in to really smooth things over as they transition Judge into this role. I think Patrick Graham was a Judge hire, though, because they worked together with the Patriots. Now, Garrett, his scheme is so lacking in so many ways. Like we mentioned, the pre-snap motion, not utilizing his running backs correctly, Daniel Jones being stuck on his first read, and the one time he goes off script, suddenly he looks like a totally different quarterback. It seems like he's trying to force him into a game manager role. I personally don't really understand what he's doing with this offense. As he said, he's still trying to figure out what their strengths are. Whatever he's doing, he's trying to force the ball to Evan Ingram. He's trying to force the ball to the first read. Devonta Freeman is a good running back. They need to get him into space. They need to get Golden Tate into space, because that's where he thrives. What we've seen from this offense entirely has been malpractice. It doesn't seem like they're going anywhere, and I'm pretty worried about it, to be honest with you. I don't think they're going to turn it around that fast. Maybe they get some points on the board, but averaging 30, even 25 points per game is pretty much out of the question, in my opinion. Now, on to the next question. Carlos, the in-person voter. Fumbles aside, Daniel Jones looked like a home run under Pat Shurmur. A year later, under Garrett, he looks like a mess. What is the issue here, and can it possibly be corrected? Well, that's the question of the century, isn't it? What did Pat Shurmur do better than Jason Garrett? Well, we all know Pat Shurmur's offense was pretty predictable, and we did not like it as well. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I liked Pat Shurmur's offense. I liked him as a coordinator, is what I liked about Pat Shurmur. I do not like him as a head coach. I didn't like him as a head coach. He couldn't handle the locker room and the responsibilities, and Mike Shula was basically just collecting a paycheck on the side as an offensive coordinator. Now, Daniel Jones, on the other hand, did look a lot better under Pat Shurmur, and I think that is because the scheme was set up for him to be creative. I think the scheme was set up for him to move through his progressions quickly and do things on the fly and make decisions. This year, it looks like he's being forced into a role that doesn't really fit his mentality. It looks like he is stuck in his progression. It looks like he is trying to listen to Jason Garrett too much and do things by the book. From the best quarterbacks in the league, if we refer to Aaron Rodgers. Sorry, the Yankees game last night really has me thinking about how much Aaron Judge sucks right now. Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, even Justin Herbert looks pretty good. We're seeing a lot of these types of quarterbacks do things on the run. Even Sam Darnold has those wow plays. What we've seen from Daniel Jones has not been wow moments. Last year, when we saw that throw against the Buccaneers to Darius Slayton over the middle of the field, that was a wow moment. Somebody in his face launching it downfield, taking a risk. We have not seen that this year. There is no excuse for that because that is scheme related. I don't think that's Daniel Jones trying to develop into a game manager. I think he's trying to listen to the scheme, and that makes sense because he wants to do a good job. He wants to listen to his coordinators. That's his job, is to do what the coordinators tell him to do. Now, I think it's very much scheme related, and we have talent in the receiver corps. We know Evan Ingram can play. We know Darius Slayton can play. We know Golden Tate's good. He's kind of washed, but he's okay. And we know that when Sterling Shepard comes back, he's also a good player. We just didn't see it from him in the first 2 weeks. Now, what it comes down to is Jason Garrett getting these guys open and telling Daniel Jones, make it happen. Do what you have to do. Don't stick on your first read. Something is going on behind the scenes that we aren't seeing, and obviously we're seeing everything at face value, but I think that as we see and progress throughout the next few games, I'm gonna keep a close eye for you guys, and I want you guys to do that same thing, is just keep a close eye on his progressions. Does he get stuck on the first one? Does he actually move on to the second one? Does he get onto the third one even? That's something that I really want to keep an eye on. Now, this next one is from Finez. How do we handle the wide receivers in the offseason? Well, there's two different ways the Giants can go about this. Either they go free agency or they go with the draft. Now, if they go free agency, they're going home. They're going bigger. They're going home. They're going Allen Robinson, in my opinion, if they take that route. Now, I don't think that they will because they want to save their cap space. They will have Golden Tate getting off the books, have a couple $1 million there, but I would rather draft a guy who maybe is in the second or third round that has high upside. We saw what T. Higgins has done. We saw what Justin Jefferson has done this year with the Vikings. I want to see some of these guys get a chance, and the fact that the Giants didn't draft a wide receiver this year is kind of malpractice. Honestly, I'm going to be straight up with you guys. I think that was a major mistake. We signed a bunch of guys as undrafted free agents. None of them have gotten a shot. I wanted to see Austin Mack actually suit up and get some reps last week, but he didn't. And now we're in a position where none of our wide receivers can get separation, and Daniel Jones is getting thrashed because of it, and he's getting a lot of the blame. He's shouldering a lot of the blame. So what do you do from here? I think they go to the draft to solve the position. I don't think they go to free agency. They still have Shepard on a deal. They still have Darius Slayton developing. They need a better offensive line. They need that first-round pick. It's going to be a high one. We know it. We need either Penei Sewell or we rather need Micah Parsons to really shore up that defense. On to our question. We have two more before I'm gonna cut it off. Since our division is terrible, what do you think the Giants' record will be at the end of the season, and who will take the division as their final record? This is by Edson Flores. Well, back to the division. I think the Giants are walking away with about 4 wins this year. I don't think they're getting more than 4 wins. We've seen that they've done enough to hurt themselves. I don't think this offense is going anywhere anytime soon. 4 wins is enough for me to say Dave Gettleman is gone, and they're going another route. I don't think it's the number 1 pick. But I think that the new GM has to have a more modern approach to the game. I want him to be younger. I want him to be more spry and not trying to force Saquon Barkley into a zone running scheme, a power blocking scheme. It doesn't make sense to me. He should be Alvin Kamara used, and they should get a running back who can take some of that brutal abuse off of Saquon. And you pay Saquon if he's doing Alvin Kamara. Like, think about this for a second. If Saquon Barkley is replicating what Alvin Kamara is doing for the Saints, you pay that man, right? Because right now, we're not paying Saquon Barkley. I'll tell you that right now. I am not paying him 1 cent until he can prove that he is capable of being a bell cow back. But even if he does close to what Alvin Kamara is doing, I think Kamara and his have different skill sets, but Saquon in space is all you need to gain yards. And they get Alvin Kamara in space somehow. Go over there and start stealing plays from the freaking Saints if you have to. It's unbelievable that we're seeing Jason Garrett, just his vanilla bean at Frappuccino offense is killing me lately. Now, I think the Cowboys will probably end up taking the division. Their defense will improve slightly, but their offense is too potent to fail. They have CeeDee Lamb. They have, even their fourth string tight end seems to do better than Evan Ingram. And they obviously have Amari Cooper, Dak Prescott. That unit isn't bad. They have Michael Gallup, good wide receivers. They're going to be putting up points. We know it. They're going to end up taking the division. But the Giants can give them a run for their money if the defense can hold up. On to the last question, Thomas M. Sweeney. Can the Giants be the number 1 seed at 12-4? I mean, getting to 12-4 alone is going to be a miracle. They have to win their 12 straight games. That's impossible, in my opinion. They're probably going to get washed this week by Dallas because we know the Giants really a motivating, confidence-building matchup for any given team. I'm going to do one more because I kind of answered a few on the division side of things. Is it possible Garrett gets fired mid-season? I don't think he will. They signed him to a 2-year deal. I don't think firing Garrett gets anything done, really. I don't think that changing the scheme mid-year actually helps the Giants. They have to stick with him the rest of the year, and then we'll see how things go. But so far, I'm sitting here like I don't think Garrett's going to be our offensive coordinator next year. I think they go out and they sign someone younger with maybe an assistant with the Chiefs or something. I have no idea. But right now, I'm sitting here like if Garrett keeps it up, there's no way in hell I'm keeping him on this roster, on this offensive coordinator position for next year. Now, they have time. They have 12 games. There's a lot of time for them to come back and hopefully make some noise. But as of now, I don't think they're firing him mid-season. Anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning into this mailbag episode with Anthony and I. Anthony was here for the first portion. I covered the second portion. We're going to be doing this weekly on Thursday, so I really appreciate you guys tuning in and being awesome for us. And we hope to do so much more cool things. And thank you guys so much, and we'll catch you guys next time.